Welcome back to the Gutsy Podcast, my gutsy and powerful ones. My name is LauraAura. I am your hostess on this journey of undoing the bullshit that's been given to you and taking your power back so that you can grow and expand your business. This is a really special episode. This Gutsy Exclusive features Tori Dunlap from her first 100K. If you're not familiar with the concept of Gutsy Exclusives, these are amazing people. Big movers and shakers that are making a big difference in the world. In the previous episodes, I've interviewed people like Marcus Lemonis from CNBC's The Profit, and also Jason Pfeiffer, who is the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine. But today we're bringing back that female badassery. Tori exudes confidence. She exudes power, and she is such a beacon of light to say, yeah, you can. She really just embodies everything that we talk about here on the Gutsy Podcast, which is owning who you are, what the fuck you want, asking for the money that you want in this life, and then going after and doing the things that your heart and soul call you to. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but we start with her story. You know, I love talking about the entrepreneurial story and how she got started and how her parents really helped to set her up for success. But also, even how good stories can play into your decisions growing up and building a business and launching a business as well. And so how working through your money story is such an important part of owning a business. We talk about her very sophisticated method on pricing. I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And she shares some really valuable tips on essentials, tools, resources that will be really beneficial as you are growing and expanding your business. Get your pen and paper ready because Tori drops nuggets of amazingness throughout this episode that you are definitely going to want to pause, write down, and absorb. I need to read her bio to you because it's fucking incredible, and I want to make sure that I'm doing her justice. So Tori Dunlap is an internationally recognized money and career expert. After saving $100,000 at the age of 25, that's right, 25, Tori quit her corporate job in marketing and founded her first 100K. This is to fight financial inequality by giving women actionable resources to better their money. She's helped over 1 million women, that's right, 1 million women negotiate their salary, pay off debt, build savings, and even invest. She is the host of the #1 business podcast called Financial Feminist. She's the author of the upcoming book, Financial Feminist, and Adweek's Finance Creator of the Year. Here's a big one. Big deep breath. Tori's work has been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, New York Times, Time, People, New York Magazine, Forbes, BuzzFeed, CNN, CNBC, and so many more. Tori now travels the world writing, speaking, and coaching about personal finance, online businesses, side hustles, and confidence for women. I am thrilled to have Tori on the show, and I am super grateful for her time, knowledge, and expertise. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tori fucking Dunlap in the Gutsy Podcast house. How the hell are you, Tori?
I'm good. I like that middle name better than my real middle name.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to use it, I think it's probably okay. At this point, great. I think it's fair.
I'll head to the name change office and be like, this is official now.
This is how we're doing things.
Yeah.
So I love that you're here with me today. Thanks for sharing your time and your expertise with us in the world.
Of course. I'm so stoked to be here.
So your one-liner, I'm going to get right into things. Your one-liner on your Instagram account is fighting the patriarchy by making you rich. Tell me, why is that so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with parents who taught me a lot about money, and I thought that was the case for everybody. I thought, okay, everybody knows not to overspend on credit cards. Everybody knows to negotiate their salaries. Of course, realized that wasn't the case. And especially wasn't the case for most women. So I graduated college in May of 2016. Trump got elected, obviously not soon after that. And I realized through these conversations with women and through realizing that what I had from my parents was a privilege, that I had a responsibility, and that we don't have any sort of equality for any marginalized group until we have financial equality. And that I was going to be coming into womanhood and into adulthood in a very different America than I think myself and a lot of us expected to be. And that our best form of protest against these unjust, inequitable, ableist, racist, misogynistic systems was a financial education, was a financial foundation. You can leave situations you don't want to be in anymore. You can leave a relationship. You can leave a job. You can decide to get married because you love this person, not because you financially need them. You can choose to have children or not have children, or retire early, or donate to causes you believe in, or start a business, right? You have all of these options open up to you when you have your financial shit together. So I think what I realized was, that severe education gap between men and women, and between the way we talk about money, between the way we celebrate men who have money and disparage women who have money. And I think that really, it became apparent to me, like, this is what I was put on this earth to do, is give women these actionable resources to better their money as a form of protest.
Oh, I love it. I think that you have such a unique story because you have these amazing parents that did teach you and they guided you. And if that's what you grew up with, why would you know anything else? And so I think it's really a fun twist to the story that you come from a background where parents supported you in that way, where that's definitely not the case. I know personally that was not the case for me. So just seeing the different spectrums of where people come from and the guidance that you're giving them is pretty fucking awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial story. So you graduated college, things had changed in the world. How did you come about starting your business?
Yeah, so I started the blog that later became her first 100K in December of 2016. So graduated college in May, Trump got elected in November, started it in December. And at the time, it was very much like a blog just talking about like 20-something, life as a 20-something woman. So like career, travel, a little bit of entrepreneurship, right? And what I started to realize, again, through having conversations with friends and realizing that all of my work was somehow tied to money, that this is what I was supposed to do. So pivoted and just decided to focus on money in like early 2019. So it was about 2 years later. And her first 100K, the origin story was I was on my first 100K journey. I was trying to save $100,000 by the time I turned 26. So at 25. And we ended up accomplishing that goal, which was huge and it was very exciting. And her first 100K, the origin story was my own 100K journey, but really like, how do we give women the financial resources to create this foundation and create their first 100K. So 2019, we rebranded and I was running the business for all of those years as a side hustle. So it was a side hustle in addition to my 9-to-5 in marketing. And then I hit my 100K goal in September of 2019. Left on a 10-day trip to Italy, came back, was on Good Morning America, and quit my corporate job 3 weeks later. So I quit right before the start of the pandemic. I quit like November, December of 2019, and then now run my business full time. And I mean, we're a global 7-figure business. We have a #1 business podcast. We're now a team of 9. So it's just been crazy. We've had like literally 4,000% growth from like last year to this year. Like in March of 2020, we had 30,000 followers. Now we have 2 million. So it's just crazy.
It's insane. I've been watching your journey and it's just like, wait a second, what? Like, how does this even happen? It's nuts. It's nuts. But I think it's such a really amazing reminder that when you step into what you're called to do and you listen to your heart and you set these goals, like the possibilities are limitless, regardless of what your goals are.
Well, and I tell all of my business coaching clients, like, I think when you first get started in business, you think, okay, I want everybody to be my client and I don't want to ostracize everybody because that might mean lost revenue. So, but what ends up happening is that you, in trying to be everything to everybody, you're nothing to nobody, right? So like, I could have just come and said like, I'm going to talk about money generally, right? And it's like, no, I'm going to talk about money specifically for like millennial and Gen Z women who are liberal and see it as a form of protest, right? And that ostracizes plenty of people. There's plenty of people who do not like my work and do not like what I do, but I have made brand evangelists out of the ones that do. So I think that was a really key turning point for me, is being clear on what I wanted to talk about and how I wanted to talk about it and who I wanted to talk about it with or to. And that, I think, is where everything changed, because there was plenty of people, talking about money in this, talking about money, talking about personal finance, but I feel like it's a relatively new thing in the past couple of years to like really talk about not only your individual choices, but how, there's systemic oppression, and like how do we manage both? Like, how do you make good personal finance choices individually, but also how do we talk about these larger systemic issues that keep marginalized groups from building wealth? So I feel like that's something that really helped us accelerate our business, was we got really clear as to who we were talking to and what we wanted to say. And it's at times controversial, and not in a like bad way. Like, I'm not saying, hopefully not saying racist shit, right? But it's like, it's not that. It's just like, there's plenty of people who like are like, don't use the word feminism, or like, why do you curse? Or like, there's plenty of people who don't agree with how I run my business, but the people who are on board are like fully on board.
They are 100% on the Tori train for sure. I think it's such a great reminder for our folks listening that niching down and really being very hyper focused, like this is a potential outcome, right? I think there's such a fear around, well, if I don't serve everyone, or if I, maybe I'm going to cut somebody out, but it's really about having those, hardcore kind of diehard fans and customers and clients that stick with you on the journey because they 110% believe in who you are and what you do. Right.
Well, and there's that classic like business example. I'm trying to remember this stat, and of course I bring something up that I can't remember, but there's that thing of like, if you get like 1,000 people, right, to, what is that, spend $1,000, isn't that $100,000 if I'm doing the math correctly?
Yes,
right?
I think so.
So like, 1,000 hardcore people who are willing to spend $100 with you. Cool. You just made 6 figures. Like, okay, double that. Now you're at 200, right? So I think that you don't need a ton of people. You just need people who really give a shit about what you're doing.
You just need people that give a shit about what you're doing. I think that you embody something that a lot of women strive for, and that's confidence. Every time I'm watching you on TikTok, even being with you here today, there's just a sense of confidence and calmness about who you are and what you do. Is that something that you've always had? Is that something that you've had to grow into? Talk to me about that.
It's both. I have many faults. Confidence is never really something I've had to work at. Like, I have many things I'm working on. Confidence has never really been one of them. I actually talked about this on the live a couple of days ago. What I have realized is that confidence and self-worth are the same thing. They are directly tied to each other. And if you do not believe yourself worthy of love, of a relationship, of an opportunity, of a business, right? If you do not believe yourself worthy, you will not be confident. And I have never had a worthiness issue. And my therapist loves that. Like, I have never had a worthiness issue. Like, I believe I am fully worthy. And like, if a relationship fails, yes, I take accountability for my actions, but it was never because I'm unlovable and never because I'm unworthy of love and respect and honesty and dependability, right? And I think we need to talk about confidence as a worthiness issue, because I show up in spaces humble, but 100% knowing I'm supposed to be there. And it actually switched for me. And like, I don't suffer from imposter syndrome anymore, because I was speaking at a panel in like 2019, and I hadn't even taken her first 100K full time yet. It was like still this like relatively new thing for me. And I was on this panel. I mean, I was 10 years younger at least than everybody else. I showed up in my leather jacket and Adidas. Everybody else was like in pencil skirts and blazers. I was next to like venture capitalists and financial advisors and really like smart people who had way more experience than I did. And I had the classic crisis of like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, what? Everybody else wants to listen to everybody else. Like, what am I doing here? I don't deserve to be here. And then I looked out in the crowd, and it was all women in their 20s and 30s who I saw all of their eyes glaze over as soon as the financial advisor said asset allocation. And it was a reminder to me. It was like literally the turning point of like, oh, I'm supposed to be here because I have something to say in the way that I say it that somebody else can't. Right? Like, I deserve to be here because I know I'm good at my job. I know that this is going to be helpful for people. And that really changed it, because it was like, oh no, I'm worthy. Again, I'm worthy of being here because I know my work makes an impact. I know that what I'm doing matters. And as well, this is why I talk about, why really at the heart of it, why I talk about money. I was talking about like choices, right? That money gives you all of these choices. That's really confidence too. I don't have to put up with bullshit. If a client is treating me terribly, even if they're like a 6-figure client, now granted, I'll like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I will let them go. I don't need them. I don't need them. If they're not going to show up and pay on time and, and believe in what I do, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I don't have to be in a romantic relationship that I don't want to be in because I have my own money, right? I can take my best friend out for dinner and pay for her without even think about it and just like treat her to that. I have all of these choices, right? I can take myself to any country and, buy myself or get myself a hotel or an Airbnb and be 100% fine and get myself there on my own dime. I drive a car I own to an apartment I rent in one of the most expensive cities in the world. And like, I do all of that. That's me, right? And I think that has helped my confidence so much too, of having financial stability. Like, it's just the best feeling. And that's the feeling I want every single woman to have, is like, I'm worthy of opportunities. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of belonging. I'm worthy of this thing. And also, I have the financial means where I don't have to stay in a situation that doesn't honor my worthiness.
So powerful. Like, even just listening to you talk about it, it's like, well, duh. I mean, why is there any other option? But I mean, let's be honest. Worthiness is such a huge issue for a lot of women, especially women in business.
Well, we're told to not be worthy actively, right? We're actively in a society that tells you, no, you're not worthy. Be grateful for your opportunities. Don't ask for more money. You should be so grateful that you even have a job. You should be so grateful that you're even dating me because you'd be alone otherwise, right? Like, we are told this all of the time. We are told by this patriarchal society to play small because it keeps them in power. We are told, don't talk about money. Wanting money is bad, right? Wanting money is evil.
Yep.
Investing's not for you. Investing's for men. Leave the stock market to men. It's 2021. We're still told that. And these are the narratives that keep the patriarchy in power. They profit off of your silence. They profit off of your inaction, right? They profit off of making you feel small. So it's a radical act of protest to play big. Like, that in and of itself, even if you don't ever march, if you don't ever donate, obviously do all those things, but it is a radical act of protest to just show up and not play small. And to like yourself. Be worthy of your opportunities, like build your worthiness muscle, because that is an act of protest in a society that forces and condenses women to play small and to not build the lives that they want and build the businesses that they want and build the communities that they want, because we're told not to.
So what advice would you give to the women that are listening that are like, Tori, I hear you. I want to feel that. I want to be in that space, but how the fuck do I do that? How do I even get to that point?
I mean, there's so many like small things. One is, this is like, everybody's heard this before, but it's really so true. Talk to yourself like you do your favorite person in your life. I know that's hard, but if you are not treating yourself just as well as you treat your partner or your best friend or your sibling, whoever your favorite person is in life, you are actively tearing yourself down. Like, you are actively becoming your own worst enemy. And we have one body, one mind, depending on your religion, I guess you have one body, one mind, but like, you're here on this earth for a finite amount of time. And every second you spend disparaging yourself, we think weirdly that if we torture ourselves, it makes us better people.
Yep.
Right. And I went through this like 6 months ago. I realized I was like, there was something in my life I was going through where I was forcing myself to feel a certain way in order to work through something. And it finally, like, it was such a no-duh moment where I zoomed out and I'm like, why are we torturing ourselves? Like, why? That's not helpful. That's not actually going to help me become a better person or progress me. And I think it's offering yourself the grace and the mercy that you'd offer somebody else, somebody that you love very deeply. And every moment you spend sabotaging that is, it's not helpful. And the other thing, and one of my favorite people in the world, Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, Big Magic, among other things. She talks about this. She's just phenomenal. I met her once and I just like bawled my eyes. I was so excited. She has this great quote that perfectionism is fear in stilettos. And as women, we get lauded as perfectionists. It's like a good thing. It's like, ooh, I have a badge, and I'm a perfectionist. It's not a good thing. It's honestly not. And we need to talk about it. The fact that it's not a good thing. It is fear, like beautified, right? It's fear in stilettos. It is your fear of failure. It is your fear from putting something out there. It's your fear of vulnerability, right? I can't tell you the amount of women who come to me and they're like, gosh, I hate my job, but like, I'm comfortable, right? And so I'm not going to go get a job, or I'm not going to start that business because what if I fail, right? And it's like, oh, well, I can't launch this thing because it's not perfect yet. I can't release my book because it's not perfect. I can't even start writing a book because I already know it's not going to be perfect. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. I'm writing my first book right now, and I'm fighting this every day. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to write the best book that I can. I know that when this book comes out and I get it in my hands, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have said this here, and then flip the page and be like, I should have done this, or I should have added this. It's never going to be perfect. And as opposed to paralyzing you, that should release you. Cool. It's never going to be perfect. Great. And the longer we stay in fear of perfectionism, again, the longer we play small, right? And I think it's so important to check yourself when that's happening. It's really beautiful and vulnerable to do something and be bad at it the first time, and to also be okay releasing things that aren't perfect. And you will build that, again, building that muscle of allowing yourself to be a little comfortable being uncomfortable. It will build your confidence, because as soon as you realize, oh, I can fail and it's fine, or I can release this thing and it's not perfect. Great. Cool. What else can I do? What else can this life lead to now that I'm not worried about having things absolutely correct at the absolute time, at the absolute place? I think that's been really helpful for me. It's just done is better than perfect. Just get it done.
Yes.
Get it done. Release it, and then just be like, okay, what, on to the next thing. Let's go to the next thing. Learn from it and move on.
It's these unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves, right?
And then right to my first point of we set these unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up for not achieving them. You set unrealistic expectations for yourself, and then you get mad when your unrealistic expectations didn't happen. You're setting yourself up for failure. No wonder you feel like shit, right? And that, you beat yourself up, and it's just do the things you want to do. Don't wait for them to be perfect. They will never be perfect. And that's a liberating, beautiful thing. And then applaud yourself for doing it at all. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be your own worst critic. Just release it and move on.
It's almost like that period of time, that task that you put off for weeks at a time. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do that.
Shipping packages. That's me. I won't ship a package ever. It takes me 4 to 6 weeks to ship anything.
In full transparency. It's like that concept though, because when you go to do it, you're like, oh, that actually wasn't so bad. And you spent weeks and hours and so much time.
The post office is 5 minutes away. I could just get in the motherfucking car and drive to the post office. But do I? No, I don't. I allow it to linger in the back of my head all the time.
Let's think about this to death. Yes. Just do it. Rip the damn Band-Aid off and ship the damn shit.
Yep. Literally. Yeah.
So you and I are both in marketing, right? We both have degrees in that. And I know a lot of people are like, Tori, how in the hell did you launch this business and now it's grown 4,000%? Or were there any tactics or methods or anything that contributed to what might seem to on the outside look like overnight success? Because we all know that overnight success is just what the public is finally seeing. There's a lot of hard ass work that goes in behind it.
Right. I mean, we're in the midst, I think we're wrapping up the Olympics at this point, right? And it's yes. I'm not an Olympic athlete by any means, but it's a good metaphor to think you know, a lot of these athletes you only hear of for like the 3 months before the Olympics, during the Olympics, and then like the 3 months after, right? Yep. And it's like, do you know how many laps those swimmers have swam for years?
How much training they have gone through?
Right. So it's like, it's a good realization of like, no, it seems like, oh, we hear about these people. It's like, oh, no, they've been at this for years. Same thing with any artist or musician or anybody who's doing that, right? It's like, yeah, a lot of them have a moment where they blow up, but like how many moments where they didn't blow up built to this. My biggest business ethos is serve before you sell, always. So when you're creating content, when you're showing up on social media, when you're showing up to market your business, if you are selling before you serve, you're not doing it correctly. And plenty of people do that. They go, oh, I will sell my product and then people will follow me on Instagram. Nope. It's the exact opposite. You build trust and credibility by providing value. So if you go on my Instagram, you go on my TikTok, I give so much value and so much actionable advice and guidance before I ever ask you to do anything for me. Before I ever ask you to pay me, before I ever ask you. Now, this is not give shit away for free or work for free. It's not what this is, right? But it is an intentional strategy to build the trust and credibility with someone in order to earn their business, right? Or in order to earn a follow, or in order to earn feedback from them. And I think it's so important that you show up with that service mindset, with how can I provide value, as opposed to how can this person work for me, right? Or how can I get this person's money or get this person's resources? Think about how you can serve them first, sell later. So for me, it took, to your point, plenty of years before I really made good money on my business. I am proud to say I've never spent money on ads or PR, like ever. I think we're just now, like I just have somebody on my team starting to coordinate PR. That was like 2 weeks ago. Like we got on Good Morning America, Entrepreneur, Forbes, Time, all of these places without any money. And we've built a 2 million person following without paying for ads because we were really intentional on serving before we sell, getting clear on who our customer was, and building organically, building that momentum that way. And yeah, plenty of people either throw money at it. They're just like, okay, I'll buy a Facebook ad, right? And that's a whole other conversation about like how these platforms have like basically forced you to do that. Because Facebook wants to make money. You know, Uncle Zuck's got to get a paycheck. But I think it's really, for us, I'm really proud that like we have built a very organic business in that way because we took years of figuring out who we wanted to talk to, how we wanted to talk to them, and providing value above all else.
Was consistency a lot of that as well? Because like this shotgun approach, like, oh, I'm going to put all of myself out there for, 2 or 3 weeks. And then when nothing happens, then I get really defeated and now I don't want to do it anymore. You have to keep showing up in those moments.
Anything. If you want a better relationship with your body and fitness, you can't eat broccoli for 2 weeks. And I'm telling this to myself because like I went on like a 5-mile hike yesterday and literally I was walking over here from the bathroom to come record the show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably lost like 10 pounds yesterday. And I'm like, no, you did not.
No, just kidding.
Right. But we do this one thing and we were like, okay, we did it. Where are my results? Right. And that's not how it works. Right. You don't have a perfect relationship overnight. You don't have a perfect body overnight. You don't have a perfect business overnight. And so I think that, it's definitely consistency. And it's definitely, for me, it was especially like figuring out where your customer is and spending time there, which sounds so obvious, but the amount of people who get on social media and they're like, okay, I need to be on Snapchat. And also TikTok's this new thing. So like, I should need to do TikTok and like, oh, Clubhouse. Okay, I need to do Clubhouse and I need to do LinkedIn and I need to do Twitter and Facebook groups. And obviously that becomes super overwhelming very quickly.
Yeah.
It's the classic Ron Swanson thing of like, why half-ass 2 things when you can whole-ass 1 thing? So I whole-assed Instagram, especially in the early days. Now we've expanded to TikTok, of course, but like for like 3 or 4 years, I posted on Facebook. I posted on Twitter, but like it was Instagram. It was like at least 1 post a day, sometimes 2, commenting, engaging. Like I knew my audience, millennial women, were on Instagram. And that's where I wanted to show up. I could have gone to YouTube For me, I didn't have the video equipment at the time. I didn't have the resources to be able to shoot and edit videos, but I knew how to create a graphic, sometimes not a great graphic, but a graphic. I knew how to write so I could show up in a caption. And I felt comfortable doing these kind of like more casual videos where I could show up on stories, without makeup or just, as I was. And yeah, I think that that's the other big thing is I really focused on 1 to 2 platforms and doubled down. Figure out where your audience is. If your audience is 60-year-old dads, they're not on Pinterest. Don't spend your time on Pinterest.
Yep.
Right? Like, that makes no sense. And if you don't know who your audience is, figure it out. Again, we were talking about niching down, like get really clear as to who your audience is. And no, it can't be everybody. It can't be everybody. It has to be a specific person with, specific demographics, specific interests, and then figure out where they are and then show up there.
There's such like a fight, like, no, I won't do it. I won't niche down. I must be on all the things. And it's like, you're making it so much harder on yourself.
You know what it is again? I saw actually a TikTok about this and I connected it to what I was just saying about like fear and stilettos, right? Of perfectionism. A bunch of people go like, oh, I'm passionate about a lot of things though. Like I'm multi-passionate. Controversial opinion. Yes, you can have a lot of passions, 100% true, but you know what you're doing is you're putting a hoop to jump through in front of yourself because you're afraid of actually choosing something. You're afraid of it being, quote, the wrong choice. You can redesign your website. You can rebrand your company. You can pivot at any time. I just need you to fucking get started. Like, don't put all of these barriers in front of yourself. Like, oh my God, I need a logo. I need a brand color. I need like the perfect tagline. I need the perfect handle for my Instagram. No, just get started. All of that can change, right? And I think that, again, it's like fear and stilettos of like, oh, I'm multi-passionate. We are all multi-passionate, but I do need you to pick one-ish things, right? And that can change at any time. And when you build trust with your audience, that can expand for you to talk about different things, right? But the multi-passionate thing, or like, I have too many interests, I can't niche down. More often than not, it is a barrier that you're putting in front of yourself to feel productive, to feel like you're maybe building a business, but you're actually not taking a step forward, right? It's right in line again with the like, I need a perfect brand color. I need a perfect logo. I need the perfect website. I need the perfect whatever. No, you don't. You just need to get started. You just need to done better than perfect, right? Done is better than perfect. Like, I just need you to get started. You can change all of that at any time. You can change all of it at any time.
Yeah. Beautiful reminder. Like look how many people pivoted in 2020.
I did. Well, when I did in 2019. Like, I am now talking more about building a business than ever before. So like and to your point about 2020, so many people did that. Everybody pivoted because it was necessary.
Right. Yeah. It's not concrete. It's changeable. It's adjustable. You can try it. If it doesn't work, then adjust it. But like, to your point, you have to do something. Otherwise you sit in your living room, looking at the wall, wondering why nothing's working, why you're not making money, why your business isn't growing, because there's no action behind it.
It's 5 years in the future and you go, oh, this thing I've always wanted to do, I never did.
That's probably even worse.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the worst. I would rather have you do it and be like, okay, I didn't like that. Cool. Now you know. You went for it, you didn't like it. Right. Again, you did it, you done it, and now you're like, okay, it's not for me. Great, move on. Find something else. Yeah, I think, and it's a larger conversation that I could go on a rant on about, we get asked from a very young age, like 5 years old, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we're supposed to have one answer for our entire lives. And we know that's not how life works. Like, especially now, like no one stays in a job for their entire life. Very few people stay in like a career or an industry for their entire life.
Right.
And it's actually a beautiful thing to be flexible and to follow your curiosity as opposed to feeling like I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because that's the whole point of life. You figure out what you're supposed to do with your life by living life.
Yep. So
when you deny yourself the opportunity to take a risk, even if it's a small one, like actually launching a website, like you deny yourself an opportunity. You deny yourself something that you can explore and something you can be curious about. You don't have to have your life figured out. None of us do. That's the whole point. So you may as well try something.
You may as well. So something else that I think gets in the way a lot that I'd love to talk about is your money story.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you were brought up with money, what you were taught about money, this taboo, hush hush, money's bad and evil.
Mm-hmm.
How in your perspective, how does money story show up in your business?
Yeah. I have a whole podcast episode about this. It's the third episode. It's called Overcome Your Psychological Bullshit Around Money. But it shows up in so many ways, your personal finances, your business finances, excuse me. And you basically, I lead you through a journaling exercise in that episode, so I won't give it away. But one of the most amazing things to uncover is, what is the first time you remember thinking about money? Like, what is your first money memory? What is the first time you remember having a conscious thought about money? Now, for me, it was saving enough money to go see Annie the musical, saving all my change in an Altoids tin. And my parents told me, if you want something and it's not Christmas or your birthday, I need you to save the money to have it. For a lot of people I talk to, it's realizing we didn't have enough money, or realizing that, my parents were fighting about money. So a lot can be uncovered when you discover what sort of narratives around money were happening as you grew up and developed. Because that, whether you realize it or not, is imprinted on your brain somewhere. And what's weirdly happened for me is, yes, my parents taught me a ton about money. They're very frugal. They're they picked very stable, they made very stable decisions in order to give me a great life. When I was trying to take the leap to quit my job, I had my parents literally call me and be like, you don't quit your job. You need health insurance. You need all these things, right? They're like, do everything you can to stay. And I had to actively fight my money story, which is pick the stable option in order to take a risk to be an entrepreneur. That was, for me, one of the scariest decisions I've ever made. Because one, it was like betting on myself, right? And two, it was actively going against what I had been taught, which is no, you go and you get a good job and you have the 401k and you have the health insurance and you show up for a boss and you might not love it all the time, but it's a steady paycheck. And I'm so glad I didn't make that decision, because I'm making way more money. I have way more fun. I get to employ people. I get to change with all of that is so much better. But even what I would consider largely a positive money story had consequences for my life. And plenty of people have negative money stories, and you can obviously see how that might have a negative impact on their life. Or I talk to plenty of my friends who are women of color, who are either first gen or second gen Americans, and they're like, I didn't grow up with money, so I just hoard all my money. I don't allow myself to spend any money on things that are small luxuries like coffee or a new sweater, because I grew up never knowing if we were going to have food on the table, or if my parents could navigate the American financial system. So I think that, sometimes it's directly in line with what your parents did. If your parents are good with money, maybe you're good with money. If your parents weren't so great with money, maybe you're not so great. Or it's the exact opposite, where literally it's okay, my parents didn't have the best relationship with money, so I'm going to hoard all my money. Or vice versa. I felt so restricted because my parents saved a bunch, so I'm going to go out and spend like crazy. So thinking about the first time you can remember considering money, what money meant, and how that impacts your life now can be really helpful, as well as, of course, how it impacts your business, how you show up in your business. I've only just gotten comfortable this past year with investing in the business. It sounds so ridiculous, but it was okay, I got to save them, cash reserves. Okay. We don't know when we're going to need this money now. And we're making very consistent money, where I, knock on wood, I don't think we're going to have a month where we're not going to be able to, make our expenses, pay our expenses. But I'm now just getting comfortable with, yeah, we can invest in Trello Premium. Sure. It's so little money, but it's that own, the thing of okay, pick the stable choice, pick the thing that is consistent. So yeah, I highly recommend listening to the episode. We do a whole journaling prompt around it, both your personal finances and your business finances. I think it'll reveal a lot for you. But yeah, I think it's just really important to understand what narratives were you told? And how is that showing up in your life right now? Because it is, whether you realize it or are mindful of it or not, it definitely is showing up for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Thank you for sharing that story, because I think it's such a good perspective that regardless of what your money story was, whether it was good, bad, in between, keep it,
Right.
spend it, whatever it is, it still plays into your business. And like you going to Trello Premium, that was a hurdle. And some people might be like, that's so silly, I just did that yesterday without thinking about it. But it's really how you're programmed. And it's the undoing of what you've been taught and allowing yourself to step into like who you are and what your money story is.
Yeah. And it served me very well. Like, I'm a very good saver. I'd save a lot of money. I'm very good at that. But it's also like, yeah, the first year I got out of college, I had to force myself to spend money. I was like, yeah, you can go out to eat, Tori.
Okay. You're going to be all right.
You've packed your lunch for 3 weeks. You can go out to eat. It's a $12 burrito bowl from Qdoba. You're fine. Like, it's not going to break you.
Everything's going to be all right.
Right.
What about the concept of talking about money? You mentioned this earlier on about just like, I feel like just recently in the last, 18 months, 2 years, talking about money vocally has been a new thing. Whereas before it's like, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about how much we make. We don't talk about our business money. Like we put that on the back burner. Why is it so important to talk about money freely and openly, like anything else?
Oh, I mean, you and I could talk about this for hours, but this has been building for a long time, right? This started building financial crisis 2008, Occupy Wall Street after that. The inequalities that have been there forever, but very much reckoned with in these past like 4 to 5 years. I think that you start realizing, of course, like I said before, that like the don't talk about money, it's taboo narrative is perpetuated by the system that they're trying to uphold. And they're trying to actively keep Black and brown people, women, members of the LGBTQ community, differently abled or disabled people. They're trying to keep you from building wealth actively, because that means, for them at least, in their heads, they're like, well, we can't have them build wealth because then we will be out of power, right? We won't have wealth anymore.
Then we will not be wealthy.
Right. So the other thing is, it's like, I don't want a stack of government issued paper. That does me nothing, right? Benjamin Franklin's face on like tree babies, that does me nothing, right? So I don't want money. I want what money can buy me. I want the choices that money offers. And I think when we start talking about money and we start working through some of this like psychological bullshit we have around money, the shame and judgment around money, when we start realizing that like, okay, we've been told that money is bad and evil, so we don't want it. And then we've been told to not talk about it so that we don't gain agency and power. It becomes so obvious that we have to talk about it. It becomes so obvious that like, if I am telling you that I'm really stressed by my student loan debt or by my credit card debt, we know psychologically that overcoming that shame is the first step to really getting control over that, or to feeling like you can take action. It's just like anything. As soon as you talk about it, as soon as you make it known, that's a huge step in working through some of that bullshit trauma that you might have around money. It's also one of the best resources we have for bridging those inequality gaps, is if on the way out, me as a white woman, or, on the way out of my company, or even while I'm there, of course, as a white woman, I tell my Black coworker what I'm making. Or, hey, I got this opportunity, to lead this project, and I would really love your help. Like, I'd really love you to co-lead this with me, right? Like, that's huge. The advocacy and the radical transparency around salary, around debt, around your psychological struggles with money, like all of these things make a huge impact. We know as women, of course, that we make less than men do, even worse if you're a woman of color. We also are not investing compared to men. We're either waiting longer to invest or we're not investing at all. And then women on average live 7 years longer than men do.
So what are we supposed to do?
Right. So that's a terrible equation. That's a horrible equation, right? And the more we believe the narrative, again, that talking about money is bad, it's taboo, it's gauche, it's impolite, we don't have the resources to be able to make that statistic less terrifying. And it is one of our best forms. I sound like a broken record, but it's our best form of protest. By talking transparently about it, by overcoming and dealing with the shame, the judgment, the fear we have around money, the entire world starts to change when women talk openly about money, when everybody talks openly about money. And if you're a male identifying listener, like, you have a huge responsibility to talk about money, because you're talking about money with your other male friends. You're having conversations on the golf course or over a beer about the stocks you bought or the crypto you sold. I know you're talking about it, right? And it is not socially acceptable for women to talk about money in that same way. It's not acceptable for us to talk about the bonus we pulled in last year, right? But if you're talking about money, and if you're advocating for women, and if you're giving women resources, that starts to change, because it's socially acceptable for you to talk about money, to ask for more money. It is unfortunately not socially acceptable for us to yet. So advocate for us. Allow those conversations to be less taboo by encouraging them, starting them, and then bringing women into them.
It's again, it goes back to undoing. It's just undoing all these things that we've been taught and trained, and it's just like, let's just get back to basics. There's a neutral playing ground that is hungry for all of this, and money shaming is certainly a big piece of it. There's a big question that I hear a lot, so I'd love to get your insight on it, is, from a female entrepreneur standpoint, how do I price my products and services?
Ooh, age-old question.
I mean, every business is different, every industry is different, right? So there's different revenue streams, different expenses, but are there any general rules or guidance or starting points that you can recommend? I love your laugh already.
I'm going to give you the answer that no one will actually say, and that's not very helpful.
Awesome.
I throw spaghetti at a wall and see if it sticks. That's awesome. Honestly my pricing model. Is like, I think it's roughly worth this amount of money based on my time, based on my labor, based on the resources, based on what I think it's worth, and what I know generally my audience will be willing to pay. And let's see. That's honestly it. The amount of conversations I've had, like when, like, I do a lot of collaborations with like other female entrepreneurs, like we'll do a workshop series together or something like that. The amount of times, again, no one will admit to this out loud, but the amount of times she and I have sat down and been like, $400? I feel that sounds good. I don't know. Like,
feels right.
It feels good. Oh, but we have to make it $397 because people are more likely psychologically to buy if it ends as a 7. Okay, $397. That sounds good. Cool. Like, that happens all the time. Now, granted, of course, the mental math we're doing is, again, like, what are our taxes? What are our expenses? How much do we think this thing is worth in terms of like the value that we're giving? If we're on a workshop for 3 hours as opposed to 1, obviously that's going to be more money, right? There's a lot of things that we're factoring into that number, but at the end of the day, I'm making an informed decision and then just throwing spaghetti at a wall and being like, okay, all right, let's do it. But the one thing I see with a lot of new entrepreneurs, again, so obvious, but you have to pay your own taxes. You have to pay your own taxes.
Yes,
so if you get $1,000 from a client, that is not $1,000. That is not $1,000 in your pocket. 30 to 40% is the IRS. So, okay, now we have $700. Let's say you just spent $200 on expenses. Okay, you're taking home $500, which is great, but that's half of the money you thought you were going to take home. So when you're pricing, you need to consider that a $97 product is not $97 in your pocket. You have to pay, let's say, your virtual assistant. You have to pay your taxes, obviously. You have to pay for your Canvas subscription. You have to pay for the website hosting platform. You have to pay for your email marketing service. Like, you have all of these things to consider when you're pricing. It's not just like, what is this thing worth? What is the amount of time, energy, that I put into this thing, but also what are the actual costs of running my business? So please factor those in when you're pricing yourself. I see this a lot, especially with like more traditional influencer marketing. If you're a content creator, if you're an influencer, like working with a brand and being like, okay, cool, $1,000 to like take a photo and post it. No, Come on, it was way more work than that. And you have a lot of taxes and expenses with that $1,000. So when you are pricing yourself, please keep both of those things in mind.
Yes. That's why knowing your numbers is
so important.
So insanely important. I think that there's this concept of out of sight, out of mind. If I just don't look at it, I won't really know. And
we call that the ostrich effect in the personal finance community. You bury your head in the sand and you act like your problems don't exist. Yeah, yes. It's a common thing. Very, very, very common.
Super common. And again, it goes back to that, rip the Band-Aid off, just pull it out and look at it. There's so much value in, there's power in knowledge, right? And yes. So it's ripping off that Band-Aid, seeing things for what they are, and not beating yourself up about it. They are what they are, where they are.
Right.
So, but I love your technique is so liberating in its own. It's like, I think this feels right. Let's do that.
That's right.
I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, thank God. I thought I was the only one doing that.
No. And I never hear entrepreneurs talk about it. So I'm like, no, if I'm being honest, like this is what happens. Again, I've gotten to the point in my business where like I am making an informed choice. I am not just saying a random number. I'm not saying like, oh, $1 million. Cool. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm making an informed choice based on what I know my audience really well. I know my taxes and expenses really well. I know the value of what I'm selling, but it's also, yeah, this sounds like a good number. Okay, cool. Great.
Doesn't have to be overly scientific. Speaking of the ostrich effect, what are some foundational tools or resources that female entrepreneurs should really consider having in place to make sure that they're looking at their numbers, managing their numbers, really just like taking a hold of that?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I tell a business owner is like, get a good accountant. That is a worthy expense. I have never done my own business taxes. I'm a finance expert and I've never done my own business taxes. I hand them off to somebody else. That is the Dwight Schrute quote where he's like, I wouldn't tip someone to do a service that I could do myself. But he's like, I tip my was it oncologist? I wish I knew the quote, but he's basically like, yeah, he tips somebody that like his doctor, to remove his like kidney stones because he couldn't do that himself. And like, that's the thing for me is it's like, I would rather have it done right. I would rather pay money to this expert to have it done right than me spend 10 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, 50 hours stressing about it. So that like, get yourself a good accountant and track everything, track all of your numbers. My friend Mal, who I frequently collaborate with, she has this great spreadsheet and like course to go along with it. It's called Get Your Sheet Together. I'll send you the link if you want to put it in the show notes, but that's the spreadsheet I use. We call it internally the BS and it's called the big spreadsheet. Like I literally we review it all of the time. It's like, has, what is the client name? Have they paid? When did they pay? When was the money actually received in the bank account? And then, where are our taxes and expenses? How is that getting broken down? How are we doing by quarter? How are we doing by month? How are we doing by week? Like all of it's there. And so like, that is the Bible for me of like, I go to that literally every day in some capacity to like check in on things, make decisions, etc. So I think know your numbers, like you said, track everything, get an accountant. And then just like more on the marketing side, like I'm sure you probably know and use Canva. Like Canva has been huge for us in our business. We love Canva. Find a social media scheduling platform. I like Buffer, Buffer. Get yourself a good payroll platform. Gusto is a good option. I have all of these linked on my website too, under the tools page. But I would say really at the end of the day, it's especially for creative entrepreneurs, I find that it's like, okay, I just want to do the creative thing. Yep. I just want to show up and I just want to be like the creative thing. Like you need a left brain somewhere. So whether that is a virtual assistant, whether that's you dedicating time to put on your left brain, if you can't afford to hire somebody else, right? An accountant, a bookkeeper, like businesses do not make money by just being creative. You have to be creative and also manage your business. You have to execute and make money and learn how that works. So don't get so caught up in creating that you are not tracking your numbers, that you're not looking at things. And it's also really fun. Like I'm very motivated by numbers, weirdly. So like if we're rounding out the month, let's say at like 99 or 98K, and it's like 2 days, we're like, okay, how can we make 2 more K to just like get to that number? Like, it's so fun. Or like, okay, we know we have to make, we're on track to make as much as last month. What if we can make more? Like, what can we do in these last couple days to like make more money? It's just fun. Like, I love that. I love like thinking through, okay, well, let's just create a challenge for ourselves and see if we can hit it. So that's also what it allows you to do is not just like tracking the like boring stuff, but it's also like, let's see if we can make more money, and let's see how, and like, let's see how much we can do. And let's see if we can beat last month. And okay, let's see if we can beat the month before that. So I think that that's the fun part about really, tracking your numbers and being strategic as a business owner and using those tools to your advantage is like, you can continue to like grow and push your business and experiment and see what works.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the positive side effects of befriending your money, right? Like it doesn't have to be the scary monster that lives in the closet. It's like you can actually, and I know you're a huge advocate of having a money date, like
yes.
one day a week, like really just like spending intimate time.
Oh, and you really need to do it as a business owner. Like you really need to have a money date. We call it money date or like financial self-care. We also have a podcast episode of like guiding somebody through the process of that. But yeah, huge for business owners of like, again, like I said, dedicate time. That's your left brain time of like, okay, I'm going to sit down, especially if you're a creative entrepreneur. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to look at my numbers and I'm going to make strategic decisions and we're going to figure this out.
It's like any other good habit. You have to, sometimes you got to force it in the beginning, but then it becomes a non-negotiable.
Yep.
We're starting to round out our time. I have 2 final questions for you. One, your most passionate piece of advice regarding money, female entrepreneurship, life in general.
It's a good one. I mean, I've said it so many times already, but yeah, talk about money. Money is not evil. Money is a friend. And it is an act of protest to get your money together. It is literally a radical act for you to get rich because none of society wants you to be. So it is a radical act of protest to get your financial shit together and to have a financial foundation.
I feel like it's like, hold my beer. I'll be back. I got shit to do. And Tori, my favorite question in the whole world, what does gutsy mean to you?
Ooh. I don't know. I have to think about. I mean, the first thing I thought of was just like a fucking middle finger. Like that's just, if you look at my Instagram, that's just what it is. And then the other cheesy answer is just like staying true to yourself, knowing who you are and what you want. And yeah, again, like radically going after the things you want to go after unabashedly. I think we get so self-conscious as we get older about like what other people are going to think about us. And social media doesn't help with that.
Not at all. Right?
I love Bo Burnham, and he talks about this extensively in his work where he's like, social media is just like perform all the time, your entire life, right? Just perform it. And I think gutsy is like doing the things that you want to do that feel genuine and authentic to you and that fill your soul. And thinking like, okay, somebody's not going to like this, and that's okay. I'm going to do it anyway because it's what I want to do.
Power in the words and the action. Amazing. Tori, I can't thank you enough for spending your amazing time and your knowledge with us. Also, thank you for just showing up for you, because by showing up for you, you're showing up for us. And that is where the power is. That is where just this contagious energy of yes, we can. And when we bind together, really amazing things happen. So I thank you on behalf of all women of the world. Thanks for being you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for tuning in to this Gutsy exclusive with Tori Dunlap from her first 100K and the #1 business podcast. Let's make sure we give that a round of applause, called Financial Feminist, on all the different platforms. Look, Tori embodies so much power, so much knowledge, so much go for it, right? There's just this energy behind her that is like, yeah, why would I be anyone else other than who I am? I hope that this episode has inspires you to take action. I hope it has inspired you to make money your friend, to know that it's okay to talk about money. It's more than okay to be who you are. No matter who you're sitting with on a panel, no matter how you're dressed, know that you showing up as you is the magic, is the power, and is what ultimately is going to help drive and grow your business. All the episodes that Tori mentioned in this podcast is linked in the show notes, as well as the BS Excel sheet. If that doesn't make you want to download it, I don't really know what will, but you can find links to all of those resources in the show notes of this episode. Thank you for joining us on the Gutsy Podcast Exclusive tour of the world. Who knows where we are headed next? Steve Harvey, I'm coming for you. I'm just letting you know. I would love to hear what your big takeaways were from this episode. So tag me on Instagram using handle @LauraAura. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.